Hey everyone, welcome to the SCG Hobby channel. My name's Nick.
I'm Dave from SCG Hobby, and this is the 4 a.m. edition of box opening for Zendikar Rising.
Yes, we have not one but two boxes of Zendikar Rising to open for you. These are the draft boosters, and we're going to save the expeditions for the end, so you have to wait to see all the goodness. Oh, that was really stuck in there, isn't it? Okay. Save this for later. Honors on the first pack.
All right, so we are going to open the first pack from this box. Now, these packs are the ones that are printed in Japan, so the rares are towards the front. So we have to start from the back.
Which I'm going to mess up, guaranteed, but that's okay.
Oh, we have a... What kind of art are they calling these ones? Are they just showcase still?
I think they're still showcase.
Okay.
Prowling Felidar. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. We're getting to our uncommons.
Brushfire Elemental as a showcase.
All right, Seagate Restoration.
Ooh, first mythic of the box already.
Oh, there's a nice full behind here too. So with Seagate Restoration, it is one of the mythic lands. Current price, we're looking right around $8. So that's not a bad way to start the box. Mm-hmm. On the reverse side, it comes into play tapped. Unless you pay 3 life, it will tap for a blue mana. On the front side, we have a sorcery. It is 4 triple blue. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand, +1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game.
Nice splashy mythic for a standard Pioneer control list there.
And the...
Ooh. Foil Showcase McKindy Ox. So we got 3 showcases in one pack.
Not bad at all.
That is neat. Alright. Did I use my Zendikar's pun? No, I didn't yet. So we're looking at new Zendikar's second pack. Ugh, never gets old. Ooh, anti-cognition. Nice little common there. Second mythic of the box, ripping through them fat. This is Scourge of the Skyclaves. So it's 1 and a black for a creature demon. It has kicker 4 and a black. When you cast this spell, if it was kicked, each player loses half their life rounded up. And Scourge of the Skyclaves' power and toughness are each equal to 20 minus the highest life total among players. Very close to Death Shadow is what most people are going off of. People are trying to make it kind of a brewer's paradise for this card in Standard and Pioneer, and people are jamming it in Modern, so pretty good so far.
That's actually not bad at all because this is right around $11, so
Ooh.
You can go ahead with that one.
Sure. Gotta rip it from the top like a savage, so.
The best cat token so far.
You think so?
I
it's got a
so.
satchel. That's pretty official for a cat. Cats seem kind of scary on this time around on Zendikar. Alright, get into uncommons. And our rare, we have Skyclave Shade. 1 and a black for a Shade. Kicker, 2 and a black. Skyclave Shade can't be blocked. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield. 2+1/+1 counters on it. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's in your graveyard and it's your turn, you may cast it from your graveyard this turn, and it is a 3/1.
Guess I could complain about this only being $1, but like so far we're pretty good on value, so I think that we'll let that one slide. Can I keep the cat token? I'm going to keep the cat token. I have myself a new pet. Well, they keep banning my cat in every other format as my companion, so I have to have one.
The only cat I ever liked for Magic was my Felidar Guardian.
All right, we have a showcase Spitfire
Lagak.
Lagak. All right, into our uncommon. And a rare.
Ooh.
Showcase Jace. Nick, if you want to talk a little bit about Jace here.
Yeah, sure. So, Jace Mirror Mage. 1 blue, first Planeswalker with Kicker 2. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create a token that's a copy of it, but it's not legendary, and its starting loyalty is 1. The original Jace, its starting loyalty is 4. You can +1 to scry 2, and you can activate 0, draw a card and reveal it, remove a number of loyalty counters equal to that card's converted mana cost from Jace Mirror Mage. So the cool thing with this one is you scry 2, and then on the 0, if it's a land, you don't actually lose any loyalty. So a neat little trick with this one is you +1 on the original to scry 2, make sure there's a land on top, and then you can 0 the copy on the same turn to draw a land for free and not lose that 1 loyalty on Jace.
Now, it's another Planeswalker. Now, this one's kind of weird because we have one that comes in at 3 mana or at 5 mana. So your mana cost of like entry level, when we compare it to things like Oko starting out something very high, this one's still at 3, starts out, doesn't have a great way to protect itself, but kind of protects itself in its ability to make a second copy
2 copies.
Of itself.
Yeah, and the nice thing for it is the very worst that it can be is 5 mana draw 2, which isn't the best, but if that's the worst it can be and the best, you can just keep a nice value engine going. So what's the cost
It's
coming in at for the...
right around $8 at the... Or,
is that for Showcase?
No, that's not Showcase. I'm not sure if we have a Showcase price right now, but the regular border is around $8, so we can guess that that's going to be a little bit higher.
Just ripping right through our mythics on the box.
Maybe the box is almost all mythics, and the
Maybe.
rares will be the more rare ones. Hydra token. Really like that they've expanded the art on the tokens.
Yeah, so they're more full art. All right, so we're looking at $13 for the borderless Jace.
All right, we got a legendary Tabarak, Hope's Demise. It's 2 and a black. Legendary creature, Demon Cleric. So this will actually count for one of your party. So if you're looking to build in a party, you have this card. Flying, Tabarak's Hope's Demise has lifelink as long as it has 5 or more +1/+1 counters on it. When another non-token creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Tabarak's. If that creature was a cleric, you may draw a card. If you do, you lose 1 life. It is a 2/2.
So it's one of those classic demons that end up getting more powerful, but there is a cost, usually in the form of life loss. This one's interesting, though, because a lot of the demons traditionally are just demon type. There are other demons in the set that are just straight demon, but they felt the need to add cleric to this one.
I think this could see any standard play in sort of like the Nightmare Shepherd sacrifice type decks where we could, leverage any sort of
so I think it works well
sacrificing.
with that. And then there's another legendary cleric that people are basically calling it Soul Shift, where when a cleric dies, you can return another one back to your hand. So maybe there's even a black-white cleric's kind of value engine going with all of these cards.
And with Witch's Oven still being in the format, you do still have a sacrifice outlet that can gain you 5 life.
So, and for
three
historic,
life.
if it matters, this is Hit Off Collected Company, and Rakdos was the deck to beat.
Yeah.
Mythic Invitational last week, so maybe we'll see some play in older formats as well. Alright, moving right along. Oh, that's a gorgeous insect token. We have a Territorial Scythe Cat with the showcase art.
Yeah, you're saying about the tokens. I'm kind of excited to see whenever the collector's boosters come out, we can see some of these tokens in foil. I think a lot of like the greens and the vibrant purples are really going to shine.
Alright, so on to... Alright, so we have Skyclave Relic. This one is super neat card. It's 3 mana for an artifact. It has kicker 3. It is indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you make 2 tap tokens that are copies of it, and then you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So it's cool for the ramp decks where if you want consistent ramp instead of explosive fast start to mana, basically you pay 3 mana for a mana rock. It's pretty on par with other mana rocks we've seen in design in the past, but for 6 mana you get to jump up 3 on the mana curve. So
And also coming in at 250, not quite tree fitty, but getting close. All right, what do we got here? This can be any card.
yeah. Which is cool, because even the basic, the land trackers, you put any land tracker on them, but I believe there's 9 different arts, or there's multiple different arts for the land trackers that you can put together, and it makes a panoramic picture in the background, which is neat.
Nice. Now, one thing that Wizards did say about these is it can be used to represent any double-face card, so it can also be used to represent other flip
your
cards.
delvers and things like that.
Yeah, any cards. So this checklist cards are sometimes harder to come by now.
Yeah.
This is a nice opportunity.
Ooh, gotta love that ruin crab.
Yeah, showcase ruin crab. All right, Kargan Intimidator, 1 and a red. Creature, human warrior. Cowards can't block warriors. For 1 colorless mana, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. Target warrior gains trample until end of turn, and it's a 3/1.
So what I like about this card is it kind of follows the pattern of those blue-red tempo decks, where you really don't want to overcommit to the board. You can just kind of play 1 threat at a time, and you play this turn 2, and then turn 3 you can choose all 3 modes if you need to, and it kind of clears the way. You get to use your mana efficiently, but you're not down on card resources going into the next turn once they eventually get rid of this 3/1. So
I think it's being a human warrior has some fun, casual applications here. It's coming in around 50 cents.
Gotta love the classic line, cowards can't block warriors. It's not the first time we've seen it.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the last. Alright, another Chuck land. This one 5 of 9. Ooh, Skyclave Squid. One of the gorgeous pastel looking. I'm a sucker for pastel colors, so love that art style.
I believe there's a couple octopuses. You could probably build some sort of squid octopus tribal for.
Well, I already tried my hand at the crab. Didn't work out too well if you watched that one. Alright, and our rare. Another mythic. We have the Ancient Green Warden. 4 green for a 5/7 elemental creature. It's got reach. You may play your lands from your graveyard, and if a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So we got a 6 mana 5/7 reach, already a pretty good body. It's got the Crucible of Worlds text on it, which is relevant for Eternal formats like Commander and such. And then it's got Panharmonicon for landfall, which is also always a pretty neat one.
Yeah. Now, it also does have the same cost as Primeval Titan, so your modern Scape Shifts, Titan Shift decks, could benefit from something like that, especially whenever you can cause Valakut triggers to happen twice, Field of Dead triggers to happen twice, snag, if you haven't played a land, snag
doubling
another
Valakut, I did not even think about.
Yeah.
That's pretty nifty. And it gets lands off the graveyard when you sack them to Scape Shift. So.
And one of the bigger tickets so far, about a little over $17.
Ooh, made my pre-release looking pretty good then.
Got the...
I forgot the foil. All right. Your turn on the Jace one.
All right.
So far we've hit 4 mythics. In between them, it looks like getting close to over half the box just off the 4 mythics. So we're doing pretty well so far.
More cat. Oh, another McKindy Ox.
I want to talk about that one common that's going to be seeing play while you're looking through them is the Feed the Swarm. Finally get targeted enchantment removal in black. It's going to be a huge deal for, I think, most formats moving forward from here.
All right, Archon of Emeria, 2 and a white. Flying. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tap for a 2/3. It definitely looks like it fits in the D&T style decks.
The white weenie one. Yeah, it's interesting because the first thing I notice off of it, first it kind of reminds me of the Thalia imitation of non-basic lands coming in tapped. What I found weird about the card is the first ability is symmetrical, so each player can't cast more than one spell, but then the second ability is non-symmetrical, so your opponent's non-basics come into play tapped. So.
Yeah, it feels like the rule of law effects, the one Eidolon of Rhetoric, is it?
I believe that one, Rhetoric is...
Rhetoric, yeah. So, you have two relevant effects sort of stapled onto one creature, something, and not the worst body either. So it's something a deck like that could...
I'm interested to see if this does make any headway in Modern, because, if there's one way you can abuse the one spell per turn, it's going to be Aether Vial, and I think that works pretty well with this.
And does trade with a Delver, being a 2/3.
I don't know the last time I've seen a Delver in Modern.
It's coming in at $1, though.
Okay. So all you D&T players, pick up your playset while it's $1. Oh, our first normal McKindy Ox art.
Another reprint of Tormenting Voice.
Oh, I'm getting a little sloppy on the pulls from the back. And our rare, we have an Inscription of Abundance. So this is 1 in a green for an instant, and it has kicker 2 in a green. So you choose one of 3, and then if the spell is kicked, you choose any number, so up to 3 instead. First mode, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. Second mode, target player gains X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures they control. Third mode, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. An important thing to note for the inscriptions is when you finish choosing the modes for it, you go in order. It's relevant, so if you're going to have a creature that's going to end up dying from the fight, if it's the same one you target to gain life, you gain the life first and then they fight. So there's kind of little, and then you get the counters before they fight also. So it's important to remember those kind of things.
What you get for you?
Oh, man, I keep missing our foils. We have a Concerted Defense foil. This is... what United Will is probably the closest version I can think of this. Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller plays 1, plus an additional 1 for each creature in your party, and it's for 1 blue. What's that inscription looking at for us?
It's a 50 center. You can go ahead with that.
About on par for the green modal spells in a cycle. Well, I do love me some Primeval Command, or Primal Command.
Things to put in your Knitfit deck.
Yeah. Oh man, Knitfit's gonna make a comeback. I'm feeling it. Oh, and I love the Disenchant's back. Just one of the cleanest sideboard cards you could ever make.
Not as good with Indestructible Gods you might be seeing. So.
Yeah. All right, we have Thieving Sky Dancer. The one everyone... Oh, and another 4. We'll get to that. So 1 in a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Rogue. It's got kicker X, but X cannot be 0. It's a 2/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to Thieving Skydiver. So my first thought, and I want to know from the Vintage player, is this being played in Vintage?
I will typically not play these style of decks. I can imagine it seeing some sort of a play, though. You have thief type decks where you'll have cards like Dak Faden that are good at stealing, small artifacts. With its X cost, though...
So X can't be 0, but it is X or less, so you can pay 1 to try and steal a Black Lotus or a Mox.
Yeah, I think your Mox is probably going to be the better
The
target
safer,
because the Lotus will just go. Now with a lot of the artifacts like getting higher in costs as well, Time Vault still too, but you know a lot of the bigger things like Bolus the Citadel being at 6, Mystic Forge I believe is 5.
I think it's 4.
4.
Mm-hmm.
4.
So I guess another question is there's rising popularity in like a 4-color humans Bob list. While this isn't a human, do you think the 2/1 body's relevant or no?
I think a 2/1 flying is relevant.
Okay. And what's that?
That is coming in at 340.
Ooh, that's
so it's
not
close
bad.
enough to tree
And then another foil, we have a Shadow Stinger. It's a 3-mana 1/4 vampire rogue. You can tap another rogue to give it death touch, and when it deals damage to a player, they mill 3. Yeah. We are really analyzing this box. Looks like we're about a third of the way out of this one.
All right. Well, we got plenty of time in the day.
Yeah, for those keeping track, it's what, about 4:30 for us right now in the AM while we're getting this done. 4:41, I've been corrected.
I think this can replace Eidolon or Rhetoric and the new Elvish Reclaimer Titan Valakut lists in Modern.
Okay. Talking about the Archon of
Back
Emeria
to-
and
back up
its playability in that green-white lands matter kind of list with Knight. But the rare you just opened, Magmatic Channeler, a lot of brewing going around with this one.
It comes in at 1 and a red, creature, human, wizard. As long as there are 4 or more instant and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, Magmatic Channeler gets +3/+1. Tap, discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play this card this turn. So it has a lot of like the Red's current theme of getting cards for you to play, but you have to play them in a certain amount of time and typically don't get any sort of like mana discount or for free.
Mm-hmm.
But it is also playing to the graveyard matter strategies as well.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people local burn players are talking about it in Modern just because, you know, turn 1 bolt, turn 2 this guy, turn 3 bolt, lava spike. Already it's a 4/4 attacking in.
Yeah, 4/4 for 2 isn't bad with an ability.
Mm-hmm. And it gives you that extra reach.
It is
And I think
a little
if-
over $2.
yeah. So I think it'll also be an interesting card if people are playing rogues. They're trying to mill your graveyard anyway, so it's kind of a nice little counterplay against the blue-black flash decks as well.
Okay, yeah. I think most of the rogues are fairly lightweight creatures as well.
Yeah.
So 4/4 swinging in is.
All right, another Permart Spitfire Lagak. Gorgeous art. We'll see if the card can hold up to its own in Limited. Try to move a little bit faster through commons as we go. And our rare, we have a Myriad Construct. This is an interesting one because this is one of those heavy text cards people kind of misread the first time they go through it. So it is a 4-mana artifact creature construct. It's got kicker 3. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each non-basic land your opponents control. When it becomes a target of a spell, not spell your opponents control, which is where most people misread it. It's just target of a spell. Sacrifice it and create a number of 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens equal to its power. Another interesting thing of this is you don't sacrifice it as part of the spell being kind of like triggered. It's as it resolves. So you can pump this up multiple times and then just kind of go like giant growth in response, giant growth, and then all of a sudden it's got 6 power, and you actually get the ability to resolve twice, so you get double the number of 1/1 constructs. Basing on the cost and mattering about non-basic lands your opponents control, this is most likely just going to see play in Commander, though.
Well, I think actually this could actually have some vintage applications for the workshop decks
baby.
have been moving into Ravager strategies. So when they were using Hangerback Walker, blowing up Hangerback Walker to the Ravager for the counters, then you can have a bunch of little flyers, or you can keep piling them onto the Hangerback. 7 mana for an artifact isn't really that hard of a cost in a deck like that. Gives you a little bit more range for things like your artifact removal, upgrade, ancient grudge.
I was gonna say my one question is, how often is it going to be targeted by spells in Vintage? Because I can't imagine your opponent's gonna want to ancient grudge this.
Yeah, I mean, or you could also die to a 7/7 or something like
a
that. So,
valid
at some point, if you do nothing about it, you have to answer it sometime.
Yeah.
But it is just under $1.
Keeping in theme with new Vintage playable cards.
Yes. I think that one has.
They got to balance out the old Vintage playable cards.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
We have to make the format Highlander just because there's so many good cards.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a lot of that links that we've opened.
Yeah.
All right, Crag Crown Pathway. Now this is one of the new land cycles here that they're not fetchable, but they really do give you, an advantage in mana fixing based on what you need at the time. Being red on one side, Timber Crown Pathway on the other side being green, not coming into play tapped is definitely a huge bonus. What changes do you think this is going to make to standard with the loss of shocks and stuff?
So we are losing shock lands. So right now, most of the lands prior to Zendikar lands being added kind of encourage 3 to 4 to 5 color nonsense, because we have the triomes and we have temples, so it's kind of play slower, get better mana for the mana intensive cards. What the Pathway cycle does is it encourages those 2 color aggressive decks, because while it's going to be harder to go from white mana to double red, or green mana, turn 1 goose into turn 2 double red or triple red card, it does allow you to kind of pick what you need early for those aggressive decks that just kind of have 1 or 2, or I guess just 1 mana in its cost, and then later in the game you can try to find better, more consistent mana.
Yeah.
So.
And this one coming in just under $5. I don't think these are ever really going to be a bad buy long term. They're going to be useful in
a lot of pros are calling it the best fast land that Standard has gotten in a long time for aggressive decks. So I'm excited to pick up my play sets of the cycle. Oh, it's good when the beetle's showing up. Alrighty. This is a Skyclave Relic. So we did see this one already, so we can kind of skip over it quickly, but just a reminder, it's the 3 mana artifact, kicker 3, indestructible mana rock. If it was kicked, you get 2 more mana rocks. And our foil, first foil rare of the pack, we have a Valakut Awakening. 2 and a red instant. Put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library, then draw that many +1. So it's kind of like a wheel effect, but it goes to the bottom instead of the graveyard. And of course, on the other side, it is a land that enters the battlefield tapped. You can add red.
Now this is one of the lands in particular that I was excited about, because as we've been discussing, the modern Belcher deck definitely looks like a fun deck we're going to be playing around with, and this is one of the almost the perfect land for it, because the ability on the front is relevant. Being able to, at least if you get a really bad hand, you can at least cycle it away. And while it comes into play tapped, it will provide mana without actually counting towards lands.
Yeah, and the 2 things I would note of this is, one, the land interaction, for those of you that don't know, is in your library, it counts as a spell. So for things that matter of dig until you find a land, that won't hit it. So that's why they're adding it into Charbelcher decks, because if you have 20 lands that are actually spells in your library, you won't hit any lands. The other interesting thing I like about this that's different from the other kind of windfall effects is you discard all the hands and you draw +1. So you don't actually lose a card, whereas some of these other effects, you technically lose one card on the card advantage just to get
so
more.
its effect itself is what a lot of blue cards do by replacing itself.
Yeah. And I'm sure that foil's got to be
It
coming
is
in at a nice
$7
price.
$7. So
Nice.
not too shabby.
So we got a repeat on a rare just so we could talk more about the foil rare.
Well, at least it was a good foil.
Yeah.
Coom Hellhound Showcase. Archpriest of Iona. 1 white creature, human cleric. Archpriest of Iona's power is equal to the number of creatures in your party. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. And it is a star 2. Again, star being the number of creatures in your party. And you can actually talk a little bit more about the party mechanic.
Yeah, so the party mechanic is kind of their attempt to get back into that Dungeons and Dragons feel. For those of you who didn't know, the original Zendikar set, the marketing for it was they wanted to make just a Dungeons and Dragons feel to Magic, so they had traps and they had just kind of these great adventures and great monsters and adventurers going out. So they wanted to get back to that. So the party mechanic, since I think this is the first rare that really cared about it, so it says your party consists of up to one of each, a cleric, a rogue, a warrior, and a wizard. So once you get 4 different creatures with those creature types, you kind of get either a little bonus to a creature like you do here, or you get some sort of mana reduction is the other popular use of the mechanic.
So at worst, it is a...
This is a 1 mana 1/2 because it counts itself. Even if it's a 1 mana 2/2,
Yeah.
if you curve out with the right 2-drop, I think it's a pretty good in a low to the ground party deck or the cleric deck we were talking about earlier.
It's coming in at 50 cents, and there is a foil in this pack. Malakar Blood Priest.
All right, moving right along here. All right. So this is the Shatter Skull Charger. It is 1 red for a giant warrior creature. It has kicker 2. It is a 4/3 with trample and haste. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. And at the beginning of your end step, if Shatter Skull Charger does not have a +1/+1 counter on it, return it to its owner's hand. So this is kind of a play on the old dash mechanic, or was it Sand Step Crawl? I'm trying to remember the original one, but let's not worry about that. The dash mechanic. So on turn 3, just kind of play a 4/3 with trample haste and get in there, return it to your hand. It's nice because it protects you from sorcery speed removal. And then when it's later in the game and you have a little extra mana, you can make it a 5/4 trample haste and it'll stay on the battlefield. The other thing to note with this is it doesn't have to have the counter from the kicker for it to stay on the battlefield. So if you play this and then you play something that kind of puts counters on the team or targets it with another counter, then it can also stay around.
It'd be interesting to see how decks, if they use this, where they would curve, 3, what would be 4, and then this being 5 again.
Yeah. And the fun one, if you're trying to play out-tempo the deck playing against it, and you have a Heartless Act, you can remove all the counter, or up to 3 counters from it, on their end step when it triggers, and return it back to their hand.
Nice. Yeah, it's coming in at 50
Just
cents.
neat little tricks, All right, looks like we're about halfway done with this box.
That's going to be beautiful in foil.
Oh, that's great.
Another.
We got a play set of that at this point.
All right, so I'm gonna let you talk about this one since this.
All right,
this
so we
is
have
your card.
Cherix the Raging Isle. For those of you that have been following the channel, I tried and failed to beat the 4-color ramp menace on this one, but it is 2 blue for a legendary creature, a Leviathan Crab. So it's a 0/17, which is very interesting and unique stats. Spells your opponent cast that target it cost 2 more to cast. And then for 3 mana, Cherix gets +X -X until end of turn, where X is the number of islands you control. So super interesting card. Most people aren't trying to play with it to see it as like a 4 mana or a fair 4-mana card. Most people are trying to break it as a combo of, you know, assault formation type effects where you deal damage equal to its toughness, because 4 mana for a 0/17 has to be some of the most impressive stats, even higher than a Tree of Redemption and Perdition. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's just at a buck.
all right. Noticing there are a lot of double face cards. Okay, so we have our first Dreadworm. Looking pretty spooky. I think this one just gives a better size of like how large the worm is, but we'll keep moving
so
on
as
just to get through the commons here. And our rare, we have Maul of the Skyclaves. So lost to this in our virtual pre-release earlier. It's 2 and a white for an artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, attached to target creature you control. And then equipped creature gets +2/+2, has flying and first strike. That is Maul of the Skyclaves. And then it has equipped for 2 white. So the nice thing with all of the art equipment in this set is all of them you kind of get a free equip as they come in. So even this one is a 3 mana 2/2 flying first strike on a creature. Pretty good pre-combat, and then you also get the rebuy on it later. So
Yeah, it's just under a buck. The what is that? Aura Skyclave Hierophant.
We got there.
Legendary Core Cleric. It is lifelink. Whenever Aura Skyclave Hierophant or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it is a 3/3.
So yeah, it's Scrap Trawler, but instead of artifacts, it's clerics. We did just get a ton of new clerics, and then there have been some sneaky ones in and out through standard. But this was kind of the sacrifice engine that we've been talking about. This is the payoff mentioned a few times earlier with the other cleric cards we've seen.
Yeah, it might not be bad to revisit some of the old cards that you sacrifice some clerics to. You know, maybe in some commander style decks, there are things that require specific sacrifices for clerics or bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and putting them right back onto the battlefield is much better than like Scrap Trawler being able to return them.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, to your hand. That is 45 cents, and I believe that this is just the regular art. The buy box camo, I think.
Was it also the buy box?
Yeah, it's the alternate art.
All right.
At least I think it is.
Okay. Ooh, so we have an alternate art, the Showcase Valakut Exploration. It is 2 and a red for an enchantment. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. At the beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled with Valakut Exploration, put them into their owner's graveyard. Then, Valakut Exploration deals that much damage to each opponent. So this is kind of a play on Every couple sets you see a red enchantment that tries to give you card advantage by exiling the top card, giving you a time frame to play it. So this one's kind of neat because you have until your end step to cast the card. If you don't cast the card, then it's gone, but you get to dome your opponent for a good amount. So there's combo potential if you end up exiling an Emrakul, but there's also value if you end up exiling bolts and such.
Yeah, it's not similar to Chandra Torch of Defiance's ability, but not quite as versatile, where you can still choose to do damage or cast the card.
Yeah, it really plays well on the Reds use it or lose it card advantage motif. So.
It is around $1.50 for the normal art.
For normal. We're getting the alternate arts up as we can.
Alright, let's try to get through these comments a little bit quicker. I am terribly slow with them.
We work on opening the next one.
I keep seeing all these rogues I know you want to talk about. Alright, and we have Hagra Mauling. It is one of the double-faced cards. Its spell costs 1 less to cast if an opponent controls no basic lands. It is 2 double black and destroy target creature. So one of the things that we have noticed in this set is that even though it's a set based very much on non-basic lands, there are quite a few Punisher effects for running non-basic lands.
Mm-hmm. And as we've been seeing the pathways, for the most part, there's no real downside to running those, but, getting 1 mana cheaper on that removal kind of counters that out. And the other funny thing is if you play Hagra Mauling as a land, you're making your opponent's Hagra Maulings cost 1 cheaper.
Yep, and flipping over to Hagra Blood Pit, it is a land, enters the battlefield tapped, but the versatility I think sort of outweighs that. It's coming in at just over $1.
And then going back to that alt art Valakut Exploration, that's sitting at around $4. Alright, we have Canopy Baloth, alternate art. Oh, Fissure Wizard, which just makes me think of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, since the actual Lizard Wizard rotated out with Ravnica. I don't actually like progs, so. Alright, we have Verazol, the Split Current. Verazol for our friends on the card scanner. So, it is an X blue-green for a legendary creature Serpent. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each mana spent to cast it. Whenever you cast a kick spell, you may remove 2 +1/+1 counters from Verazol. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. So we've seen, this isn't the only card that can copy a permanent spell being cast. I think it's a very interesting design space they've taken.
Yeah.
I do find it odd that it gets a +1/+1 counter on it for each mana spent to cast it. My guess is that is for commander players, so it becomes larger the more times you have to pay commander tax.
Yeah. And it's coming in at 45 cents. Hadn't given that one a lot of thought, so didn't have much to say on it.
Well, it's just worded very weirdly, Like, you can tell which ones are kind of designed for that commander space.
Whenever I see the ones that say, copy of a permanent spell, it reminds me of the those playtest cards from the convention mystery boosters where everybody gets a token copy of. Alright, Soul Shatter. 2 and a black instant. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost among creatures and planeswalkers they control. A little bit pricier than, some of the more efficient edicts, but, I think Crackling Doom
Crackling Doom was a house.
Yeah.
And
it's a little bit reminiscent of that at least.
Yeah, and this one's kind of a shame that it's just coming in right when War of the Spark is rotating out, because this is perfect when your opponent has a Narset, an Ashiok, a Teferi, and a Liliana, and you make them sack 1, they sack the most expensive. But this Soul Shatter It's pretty versatile because you're always going to get their best one. They make sure that they're not able to sacrifice tokens, which is kind of big game with everything going on. So,
And I would say Ugin is still in the format.
Ugin
That's
is
pretty high mana
still in the
cost. So,
format.
you know, being able to have something that's pseudo targeting to get rid of that isn't bad at all. Coming in at just under $1.
Really bad at skipping, man.
You spend your whole life with packs
I know.
one direction, and
All right, so we have Coveted Prize. This is 4 and a black for a sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. So it can cost just black if you have a full party. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. If you have a full party, you may cast a spell with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So I'm going to take it to Dave on this one, who seems to be the residential tutor and free spell expert of the shop.
well, you come into this issue of it is a 5 mana tutor by itself. You know, it costing 1 less is situational. The decks I would generally play probably won't be like so much focused on party. So we search it pretty hard if you have a.
So you
what,
do
if you
need
get, if
4
you get,
different creatures
yes.
for this to be a free 4-mana spell. It seems a little win more on the second ability,
Yeah.
especially since it's competing with Grim Tutor in Standard. So
Now, one of the things it does kind of make me think of is if you go way, way back in time, when you had the Rebels decks. So, you know,
Way back in
these aren't Rebels, but you could have a deck that runs these, a party deck that runs these for silver bullet effects, or you know what you need. So, it could be 1 less makes it a single black mana.
yeah, I mean, I feel like even at 3 mana, it's Grim Tutor without having to pay the life.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there is a list that wants to run tutors for silver bullets, it's going to be a black-green creature-based deck anyways, I think. So,
Yeah.
right, and we did get a foil. So we have
This is
Foil Kabira
Footsteps.
Takedown, which is a 1 and a white, deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to a creature or planeswalker, and it is a tap land on the other side. But I love the double-faced land foils. I just think they're gorgeous. in this set.
the double face foils are just really neat in general.
All right, I think I'm starting to see the bottom of this box here, Dave.
We'll get there, but we still have that other one as well.
We do. Worth noting, we haven't seen our any other mythics since we hit number 4.
Oh,
Or maybe
Skyclave
it's changed.
Pickaxe
Yeah,
in the
great card in limited, by the way. Pick it anytime you can.
and Throne of Makindi. It is a land. It will tap for a colorless. 1 in a tap. Put a charge counter on Throne of Makindi. Tap. Remove a charge counter from Throne of Makindi. Add 2 mana of any one color. Spend this mana to cast kicked spells. So it does help you pseudo reduce the cost of kick spells by providing a little bit of extra mana. But as we've seen with some lands, it's nice, you know, that it actually will do something on its own in the form of tapping for a colorless.
Yeah, in Standard, there aren't too many great kicker cards that are constructed playable, with the exception of Jace. But it does look like it shells into that blue-green X-Serpent Commander deck pretty well. And on top of that, I think the last relevant set with kicker was Dominaria, so you might be able to get some Pioneer Historic action with the card, too.
And it's coming at 50 cents.
Ooh, we got the Warrior Lord. And our rare, we have a borderless clear water pathway. So this is the blue on the front that flips over to Murkwater Pathway. That is the black on the back. I think we already kind of talked over these.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to spend too much time, but this is the perfect land that the black-blue rogues list is looking for.
Knew you wanted to get a chance to talk about rogues at some
I think
point.
it's going to be one of the best decks in the format. There's no more Teferi.
There is a
All right, so
4-mana
the
one.
full border version of that is sitting at a pretty $10, so that's helping towards our box.
Ah, we got the Nahiri.
Ooh.
Nahiri, Heir of the Ancients. 2 red-white, legendary planeswalker Nahiri. +1, create a 1/1 white core creature token. You may attach an equipment you control to it. Very, very core themed.
Yeah.
-2, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a warrior or equipment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order. And -3, Nahiri, Heir of the Ancients, deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to twice the number of equipment you control. Coming in at 4 loyalty, 4 mana for 4 loyalty. Can protect yourself good, with the 1/1 token.
Yeah, so any planeswalker that ticks up and makes a token is always going to kind of find a niche somewhere, especially the multicolored ones. I think this pairs well with Luca in those kind of token decks. And the other card that I think that works well with this Nahirian Standard is Ancestral Blade from Throne of Eldraine, because it is an equipment that makes a 1/1 token and attaches itself to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of get that extra value of you get the token and you can attach equipment later on in the game. So,
And while I haven't always found decks for Nahiri, it has always actually been one of my favorite planeswalkers. And this one is like, if we talk about flavor design, is designed very, very flavorfully for, the core artificers.
yeah.
And it is $6.
Oh, Fissure Wizard. King Gizzard and the Fissure Wizard. I'm not going to stop saying it. I'm getting looks from our crew over here. All right, we have the Swarm Shambler. This is a 1 green for a fungus beast creature. It is a 0/0, but it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, make a 1/1 green insect token, and then you can pay 1 and tap, put a counter on Swarm Shambler. So this fits in all of those kind of black-green counter spells, or the green-white one with the Conclave Mentor coming out of M21. And the other nice thing about this one is it kind of helps protect against targeted removal, because, if they're going to try and kill something, at least you get a 1/1 insect out of it.
It's kind of like a mini hornet's nest, was it?
Ooh, yeah. Speaking of 1/1 insects, we have a foil rare, Scoot Swarm. 2 and a green for an 1/1 insect. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. And those stack. So you got 2 Scoots, you play a land, you get 2 more Scoots, and then you get 4 triggers after that, and it just kind of gets out of control. So it's it's Scoot Mob is what the callback is, but this one goes wide, whereas the other one went very tall.
And I got some fun math for you: a $3 foil and a 50-cent rare.
That's pretty good conversion rate. All right, I see white at the bottom of this box.
Finally.
We're making it for this feature film.
We have just been told by production we are approaching an hour.
Oh, that's not. I thought we've been here for well over an hour, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Another Valakut Awakening. We talked about the foil. Valakut Stoneforge on the back. Coming in at $4 in non-foil.
Still pretty solid for not being the alt-art version.
I mean, I particularly like that card. So.
Yeah.
I think this has been an hour well spent.
Oh yeah, I'm enjoying talking about magic anytime I get. Oh, there's our first Blood Chiefs there. Surprised it took Tillers to the bottom of the box to get what is considered the best uncommon in the set. So here we have Confounding Conundrum. This one is certainly a conundrum for people talking about whether it's going to be good or not. It's 1 and a blue for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So worst case, it replaces itself. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control this turn, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. So the idea of this is it stops ramp. What most people are talking about are there are Landfall Matters cards in the set, and there are things that can be double-face lands that are actually spells on one side. So if you play this and they play an Uro, there is a chance you're just letting them return their 7-mana mythic white spell or 7-mana mythic blue spell back to their hand instead of it being a land, or there are just kind of situations where you're giving them active advantage. So that's the downside to it. The plus side of it, if they Fabled Passage and crack it on the same turn, they have to return it back to their hand. Or if you Field of Ruin or Ghost Quarter after they play a land, they do kind of lose out on a land there as well.
Yeah, the card in itself is definitely a conundrum. Especially since it's non-symmetrical, so you can't abuse this effect yourself. So, it's not really sure how decks outside of decks that are looking to be like slow down ramp or stuff like mass lands coming into play.
Yeah, so it's certainly been considered a hate card. The question is, does it actually slow down the ramp cards enough? Is just getting a 6/6 that draws a card and gaining 3 life, is that still just going to be too good for these kind of hate bear decks to do?
I think if you look at if we go into like the older formats, like especially like any like Titan or Scapeshift decks, this is going to be very, very good against them. But in standard, I think that there's some risk that gets associated with the flip cards. So.
Yeah.
And that is just under $4. I said, I can't wait to see some of these in foils like this Drake, those purples and those blues.
Yeah, Zendikar is certainly going to be an exciting collector booster.
Hey, there's our little gerbil.
Oh, the Jerboa is back.
Okay. The Phylath World Sculptor.
PHYL for our friend on the keyboard there.
Legendary creature elemental at 4 red-green. When Phylath World Sculptor enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, put 4 +1/+1 counters on target plant you control.
So people are calling this one the budget Avenger of Zendikar, but this has one thing going for it that Avenger of Zendikar doesn't, and that's that this card isn't standard. So
yeah, and it's a 5/5 for 6. Does put an extra body onto the battlefield. Nice thing is though, these plants specifically do not have defender, so that can be useful. Like Colony Garden plants, no defender. You run into you could be plant aggro beatdown, I guess, if you.
And the nice thing is, so this one does count basic lands instead of non-basic lands or total lands for the tokens you get. So that is kind of a downside because generally you are going to get a few less plant tokens, but it makes up for that because instead of putting a counter on each of the tokens, you just make one giant plant that can kind of get in every turn.
And just over $1.
All right, let's see what this one's going for. That's dope art for Smite the Monstrous. Didn't see that yet.
Is Shelled Shield one of those cards you're using in your Crab combo deck? I've seen that card a few
Maybe.
times.
I don't know. You got to pay 1 extra for Hexproof, so I'm not sure if it's worth it yet. All right, so we have for the rare, Relic Robber. 2 and a red for a Goblin Rogue, 2/2 with haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player. That player creates a 0/1 colorless goblin construct artifact creature token. My word, that is a lot. With this creature can't block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, this creature deals 1 damage to you. So, for those of you that were struggling to understand all the words that happened, is whenever it deals damage, they basically get an artifact creature that deals 1 damage to them and does nothing else. So if they have wraths, it kind of loses a little bit of value there, but very annoying for opponents to deal with.
Yeah. And it's a 2/2 coming in at just under 50 cents.
Ooh, we have our first full art foil planes. This one is gorgeous with the little tornado effect going on in the Skyclave.
Yeah. Nick, I'm going to let you open the next. Finish out the box here. I'm
All right,
going to do a little bit organizing.
We got
over
3
here.
left. Well, Dave does a little bit of organizing over there. And then, of course, the expedition at the end. You've been waiting almost an hour for this. So, time to see if it's worth it. Oh, so here's the Goblin Construct Token Artifact Creature Goblin Construct Token of the rare that we just opened. For those of you that wanted or needed that.
It's nice because you can see the matching art there.
Yeah, although the token's not on fire, which is a little disappointing considering that's what's dealing damage to the opponent.
I mean, we can change that. It can most certainly be on fire.
Maybe not in stores, Dave. Alright, so we have Maddening Cacophony. 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Kicker for 3 and a blue. Each opponent mills 8 cards. If this spell was kicked, instead, each opponent mills half of their library, rounded up. So, not really a mill deck going on in Standard right now, but people are talking about this being a little 1-2 punch with the Mill Commander printed in Jumpstart, because that one is essentially fraying sanity for each opponent. So whenever, at the end of each opponent's turn, I'm trying to think of how it's actually worded, they mill cards equal to the number of cards already milled. So, with Maddening Cacophony hitting each opponent with a kicker, they mill half of their deck, and then your commander makes them mill the remaining half of their deck. So, another card that's really cool for commander. Not really sure if the rate of 1 and a blue for 8 cards milled is going to be worth seeing in Standard. And, of course, a lot of people are trying to mill themselves with Thassa's Oracle, and this doesn't quite do that. What's that,
That is $3.
Ooh, see, those commander players excited to mill people out.
Isn't there a legendary that doubles the mill as well?
Yeah, that's what it's in Jumpstart.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Alright. Oh, Rabid Bite, another premier removal card, especially with the 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch and common for limited. But I digress. Soaring Thought Thief, putting this one on the side for a little someone. That's me, by the way. All right, we have Kaza, Royal Chaser. So I believe at this point we're just missing the Rogue, and we have the full legendary party cycle.
Okay.
So this is blue-red for a legendary human wizard creature. It is a 1/2 with flying and haste. Tap it. The next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability resolves. So, kind of a nightmare for judges to explain the as this ability resolves, but it's nice they put it on there just to clean things up.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sort of has gone without saying in the past, but they've been getting more friendly with text, and it has been helpful for, a lot of players. Nice thing about it is, if you're not worried about the party mechanic, this is another card that does do Wizards Matter. Mm-hmm. So you get into some of the older Wizards Matter, like Wizards Retort, Wizards Lightning, things like that. So it's definitely an add-in to any red-blue wizard deck. I
mean, another bonus is blue-red 1/2 flying haste seems pretty good. Sometimes when you need to get that 1 extra mana on that kicker spell you're so worried about, worst case scenario, it does make any instant or sorcery cost 1 less, as long as it doesn't die in response to the tap.
And coming in at 50 cents.
All right, last pack of the box. We made it, everybody. You should subscribe as a celebration or something. Ooh, Territorial Scythe Cat with the alternate art. last rare. We have the Cragplate Baloth. This is a 5 green for a beast. It is a 6/6. Can't be countered, hexproof haste. It has kicker for an additional 2 and a green. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield 4+1/+1 counters on it. So it's a 7 mana 6/6 uncounterable hexproof haste. And then if you got 10 mana, it's a 10/10 hexproof haste uncounterable. I think this is mostly going to be a limited card, although it's going to be a bomb in limited. Although, now that people are allowed to cast counter spells whenever they want again, since Teferi is gone, having an uncounterable 6/6 haste is a good way to slash Panther away all those pesky planeswalkers.
That is true. No, I think you have a foil in that pack.
I'm so bad at checking these foils. So we have Jiraga Visionary. This is a 4 mana 3/2 elf wizard. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So it's they added 1 mana to Rogue Refiner to try and balance it out, but they did make it a wizard.
All right, and before we open that, we're going to do just a quick recap. You know, we'll have the totals for the box right up above us, but our mythics, again, not too bad at all. And then some of the more exciting rares that we saw, I left the crab in just for you.
Oh, perfect.
But some of the ones that, you know, maybe not worth most, but some
high
some
personal
nice
value on the
yeah,
card.
high personal value. Some very beautiful art, some very unique cards. But the moment that everybody's been waiting for, especially you.
All right, yeah, I'll let you open that one since
get
I got
that.
the last packs.
Okay, so this is packs with like more bulk and weight to them. You know,
I'm just like internally cringing at
Yeah.
just hearing that sound
Yeah.
of scraping plastic when there's an expensive card on the line.
all right, and it is Strip Mine.
Mine.
It's actually, definitely like playable card vintage wise as you're one of, commander wise as you're one of,
Highlander.
Highlander as you're one of.
It's nice because I feel like a lot of the fetches, while people will like the nice alternate art versions of it, it seems to be the cards that are only allowed in older formats. Older format players definitely care more about pimping their deck out. So Strip Mine, while it might not be one of the high value ones, definitely a cool one just to see alt art for Strip Mine.
Yeah, and especially like whenever you get into things like unique borders and fun borders.
All right, I'm trying to get a price update, but someone had size 6 font, so I can't quite see it. And his hand's in the looking at $28 for the Strip Mine. So
we'll just
good chunk of the box as is.
Yeah, and then up at the top we'll have the final calculations of the total of this box. We did say we were going to open a second box. We are going to take a break in production, and then
we put that in another video.
Yeah, we will possibly put that in another video. So this has been box 1 of 4 that we'll be doing for Zendikar Rising for SCG Hobby. I am Dave.
I am Nick. And thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe. And I don't know.
You got one more after that, or just...
I don't know. I don't know what the thing over there says.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.